Thank you very much, Sam. So, as Sam mentioned, my name is Lulu. My training is mainly in Wessex. In the last couple of years, I spent in HPV department in Southampton and just started as a senior clinical fellow this week in Oxford. So I've actually got something to disclose. Although my title of the talk is How Did I Get Into Robotics? I've kind of changed it really because I'm sure with all the other trainees who are struggling and coming to a conference like this that it is very difficult to get into robotic training as a trainee. So I've kind of changed it to interested in robotics and how we can kind of maximise the opportunity we are given. So when you are kind of senior training, a lot of people ask you what you're going to do next. And I thought in terms of robotic surgery, how can we get kind of further experience? And I guess one of the things is looking at doing a robotic fellowship. So I looked at the advert for the robotic fellowship that's run here at Coventry. And I guess it's kind of reassuring for us trainees. So when you look at the person's specification for essential criteria, they don't mention anything about robotic experience at all. And really in the desired level, they say maybe a first assistant course of training for robotic surgery and robotic simulation training, but there's no mention of specific hours you need to have spent or how many, kind of percentage you need to get in these simulation exercises. And I also spoke to the Portsmouth and Upper GI consultants who also run the robotic Upper GI fellowship, and what they're looking for in the fellowship is very much similar. They want to see people who are committed to robotic surgery, but not necessarily have done, got lots of experience. So that's kind of what we need to demonstrate, I think, at our level at the time. So my personal robotic experience, I guess kind of with most trainees, you kind of happen to be in the right place at the right time. So I spent a year as an ST6 in colorectal surgery at Queen Alexandra Hospital, kind of between the period of 2015 and 2016. At the time, they were really kind of forefront of doing robotic colorectal surgery. And I had no prior training. I was kind of essentially thrown into robotic surgery as a kind of bedside assistant. They said, you just need to stick a suction in it and then suction when they tell you to do so. I didn't have any knowledge of what the intuitive robotic system involved. But what they did, so Prof. Parviz and Mr. Khan did at the time, is if they happened to finish the case early, they actually let us play on the simulator. So we used to kind of compete against each other in doing simulation exercises. And that's kind of how I first became familiarized with the simulation. And then I was kind of quite lucky again when I was at Portsmouth with training one of the consultants to become one of the robotic trainees. So I got a chance to go as a first or bedside assistant to one of the wet labs. And it was great for me because I just spent 2 days doing kind of simulation while the consultant was being examined. So I had a quite nice time. And then again, it's similar thing to, I'm sure, all the other trainees, that I had a good kind of 5-6 years of no further contact with robots. And then as an ST8 in Southampton, we were getting a second robot for general surgical use. So I went to the HPV robotic course that's actually run by the Newcastle team at the Newcastle Surgical Training Centre, where you get to do cadaveric dissection, distal pancreatectomy and liver robotically. And then also in September of this year, our TPD in Wessex kind of approached the Upper GI robotic surgeons saying that, could you run a course for senior trainees within the region in terms of kind of essential robotic course. And that was really, really good. It was kind of 2 days. We spent a day at the Oxford Intuitive Centre learning and practicing docking and understanding about the basics of port placements. And then the second day we actually went to Portsmouth and did each of us were given a robotic collie to do. So that was really, really great. Next slide, please. So I think challenges of training, we already have multiple competencies we are expected to achieve. If you're a GI trainee, you've got endoscopy, we have to get the general surgery numbers. We're also expected to be proficient in laparoscopic skills, which doesn't, again, come easy. Obviously, we know that current robotic training is very much consultant focused. And then, you could have a lack of robotic simulation in your local trust. And then there's also issue with a lack of continuity. We often change trust every year, so you could be working in a trust that has a simulator, and then again you could move on to a DGH, which may not necessarily have the access to the robot. So we've already seen this chart earlier today. This is a paper published last year looking at kind of uptake and accessibility of surgical robots just in England. and in 2019 there was 48 centre out of 149 who had, this is predominantly Da Vinci, and the size of the circle actually kind of corresponds to the number of robots. And this is 2019. I would have kind of assumed that the number of circles and the size of the circle would have increased over the last few years. And again, it's a similar thing, I would have expected to see an upward trend. Next slide, please. And again, number of procedure, obviously general surgery is a little bit behind compared to gynecology, neurology and colorectal, but I think the numbers hopefully continue to increase. So I think as a trainee, we are kind of at the crucial transition point where things are moving forward. So what is it that, as a trainee, what can we do to maximize? So there are intuitive online modules. I'm, I guess, slightly biased. I mentioned intuitive, but I was thinking yesterday that actually, as a trainee, we should keep our diversity and train and try out not just intuitive, but other robotic simulators or robotic programs, because I think that will actually be kind of a special skill that a consultant may not necessarily have. We need to have a unique selling point. That's what everybody keeps telling you when you're senior training. You need to have a USP, and that could even be something that we can look into. Simulation, similarly thing we can do, but I don't think there isn't any kind of specific. The more you do, the better you're going to be. So I think this is something we can definitely achieve as a trainee, so that when we are given that opportunity, when we become a consultant, that they want to train you, that you don't have to spend hours and hours in simulation. You've already kind of done that bit. Trying to attend wet lab as a first assistant, so I think if you're working in a trust where they're starting to train a new consultant, that's really your opportunity. So hopefully you can kind of get onto all the courses at the same time as the consultant is being trained. There are courses, the numbers are limited, but I'm hoping, because there's clearly a demand for courses, that in the next couple of years we're going to see more and more courses that's directed to the trainees. And I know that Sam and Mo, as a group, we are really pushing for courses, robotic courses directed at the trainees. And then there are obviously fellowships to, hopefully increase your experience in robotics surgery. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take questions or comments.